to the youngest, they fly. When I die. And basically, man, I'm just a dude that tries to do right. You know, I try to make my tomorrows better than my yesterdays, without hurting anyone else in the process. Cause if you leave the world a better place than it was when you got here, then we all win. Now there's birth and there's death, but
cool. You mentioned atmosphere. This was kind of like the last question before we, segue. You know, Slug is one of my favorite MCs. Like, dude spits his ass off like every track he gets on. You know what I mean? Same can be said, obviously, for you. Why? I guess you guys have known each other for years and everything like that. Why choose to bring Felt together? Like, one album, okay, but 2 albums, and then moving on beyond that. Like, is there some sort of like creative synergy that y'all like share? Like, what's the the kind of like the roots of that relationship when it comes to music?
We just met selling tapes. I was in Minneapolis. I was selling him a tape. He sold me a tape. We decided to trade. I had For Real and he had Overcast, and we kind of just traded. And then eventually we kind of gravitated towards each other. He kind of worked with Mystic Journeyman and the Grouch, and then we started talking and we kind of met. And I was young and stupid. I think the first thing I ever said to him was like, "Are you a faggot? And I don't even use words like that anymore. But I was like, "Are you a faggot and are you an anti-con?" And he was like, "No and no." And I was like, "Good, let's be friends." And then from there we started talking. And
yeah.
we both have the same work ethic and we both have a good heart. Like, he's a good person. There's not a lot of good people in the world, period. And so then we talked and he was like, "Yo, why don't you? I really want to get out of Minneapolis for a while, and but I gotta work if I leave here. So why don't we just do a project together?" I was like, "Cool." We have both done songs about Christina Ricci, so I was like, "Why don't we make it a tribute to Christina Ricci?" He's like, "Cool, I want to call it Felt." And I was like, "Cool, let's do Felt, a tribute to Christina Ricci."
Okay.
I was like, Grouch has beats, and I've been meaning to do a project with him over the years. This would be a good excuse for us to use Grouch, and he has a studio. So we just lived at my house, and we smoked cigarettes and drank Budweiser every night and wrote the record. And I kind of learned a lot. That's where I learned finally, like, mastered counting bars, and like every Felt record I learned a lot from him. He's like a big homie to me, and like so he's taught me a lot.
Yeah. And
then Felt 2 came about because people just assumed that there would be one. People kept asking, so like, I guess we have to do another one. It was never in the plans to do another one.
Yeah.
And so we did another one. This time we did it with Ant. We recorded it in Minneapolis.
Ant's a phenomenal producer.
So then this people were like, "All right, Felt 3," and we're like, "Fuck." You know what I mean? Like, these kids, especially in this era, these kids are so disposable. I think that's one negative. If I can say anything negative about my fans, it's kind of like talking bad about your boss. I don't want to piss them off, but like, they really, I don't know if they take time to consume and appreciate. They're like, "All right, that's great. Like, what's next?"
Right.
I'm like, fuck. So yeah, but we are working on a Felt 3. Yeah, be on the lookout.
Very cool. And I actually read an interview with him where he was talking like he had grand hopes for this record on Warner Brothers and everything, kind of like bridging that. I'm not gonna say the mainstream underground stigma has been bridged or whatever, but he had coming from the position that you were in, with that whole indie scene, and then being on a major, he was definitely, and at the time the article was written, I don't know, it was like March maybe, but he was definitely talking about, he's like, MURS is that dude, like, it's gonna be a big record, big time for hip hop.
Oh man, I hope so, man. I just hope this building makes the right decisions, man. Honestly, what I would love to do is just like me working with Ninth Wonder, me working with Atmosphere. Like, it's a lot of Atmosphere fans that they bring to the table. It's not a whole lot of MURS fans. And I'm still looking for my fan base. Like I said, my experience is unique, and I don't feel like I'm converting enough at-risk youth and people who have black, brown, yellow, whatever, urban, white, lower middle class. Kids that I feel that my music relates to, that are part of my struggle, that come from maybe abusive homes and things like that I've been through. I don't think that those fans, I haven't found those fans, and I would love to bring them into the Brother Ali's. And I think Atmosphere, Sean exposed me to all of his fan base, and I would love to expose Atmosphere to some at-risk youth, because I think they would feel that, like, wow, this is, like you said, he spits, he's deep, but it's not like Lil Wayne, who is dope. But it's different, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think we have to grow more kids that can be exposed to new shit and can the duality that I have. You know what I mean? You can't be just so rooted in the hood. Like, I still love E40, and I can tell you how they started. I can tell you about Tony Draper. I can tell you about Suave House, Percy Miller, Brian Williams, and Ronald Williams, the Cash Money Records. Like, I can tell you about their business models, but I can also tell you about, you know, Ian McKay and Discord and Minor Threat and things like that. And it's just about being balanced and being a complete human being. Because there's hardcore kids that don't know anything about this. You know what I mean? But then there's groups like Terror, and this kid Scott Vogel is a hardcore band, and they're super into Dilated Peoples and Mobb Deep. And like, it's a new era where your iTunes is filled with everything. And now I think that will help Americans and young at-risk youth get out of this, because their iTunes is going to be able to take them someplace else. And I think it's all in your mind. That's all in happening. You know, I hate to be corny, but it's really, I'm learning too. It's all about having a positive mental attitude, and those are the things you attract in your life. And right now, all you listen to is about guns, drugs, and whatever. And I listen to those songs too, but there's a time in my car where I'm like, all right, it's time for some fucking what's the dude's name from Hootie and the Blowfish?
Darius Rucker.
Darius Rucker.
You like that country song?
Yeah, I got his whole album in the car. It's time for some Taylor Swift. It's time for some Sublime.
Yep.
It's time for some, you know what I mean, Atmosphere. It's time for, you know what I mean, it's time for some Brother Ali. And just it's all about balancing, because like I said, what's in your mind is, you know, what you attract and what you listen to again and again and again. If you're hearing, you know, money, sex, drugs, that's all you're going to be focused on.
Right.
Got to balance it out.
Your hopes and your dreams and your hate and your lies.